Hello and welcome to the Vital Blend. My name is Anthony. I'm glad you could be here for this episode because today I want to introduce you to Carla Fries. And she has quite an incredible plant-based transformation story. And she'll tell you that it's not typical. And over the course of the hour that I was talking with her, I got a sense of what she meant by that. And while the results that she got are typical, the way that she went about it was not. And what do I mean by that? Well, look, she used to weigh 371 pounds. And what's amazing is that she didn't focus on weight loss to get those pounds off. You would think that she would. Instead, she focused on just eating healthy. She was concerned about her mental health because Alzheimer's had affected so many in her family, including her own mother. And so while she was eating for health, everything else fell into place. And something else that she did, which is not typical, is once she saw the film Forks Over Knives, she was all in on a whole food plant-based diet, and she's never gone off plan. So all these little battles that she won along the way helped her to be consistent, and consistency is where you get the results. She lost all the weight that she needed, reversed her type 2, high cholesterol, anxiety, sleep apnea, and more. So right now, let's meet Carla Fries to find out how she did it all. Hello, Carla. Thank you so much for joining the Vital Blend. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Anthony, for asking me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's really hard to believe that at one point you were what, 371 pounds, I think was the most that you have ever weighed. And it's just amazing. I mean, that's a lot of weight. And that didn't happen quickly. It took a while. I want to know about the relationship that you had with food. What was that like? And how long did it take for you to get to that weight?
I was always overweight. Well, my mother always said I was overweight, but for my generation, we started getting the processed foods. So when I was in junior high and high school, we got Jello, all the like Jello and all the Lucky Charms and Captain Crunch and all the Twinkies and all that kind of stuff. The processed food really came into being. Oh, I think right when I was born, there was like TV dinners and, all the really horrible processed stuff that was convenient. And as people were having to work and having two income families and, it was easier. So that's how I grew up. I just grew up with a lot, I started eating the processed food and fast food. So I was overweight a little bit in high school. When I look back now, of course, I didn't think I was overweight, but compared to all the other girls in my class, I was. So after college, I just started gaining, and I wasn't exercising, and I was working a lot. I was always kind of a workaholic. And it was usually a sedentary job, sitting down. So I didn't do a lot of exercise, and I was eating fast food or like the healthy choice, lean cuisine kind of meals, because I was constantly on a diet. And so I just eventually, I ate out a lot. Sometimes I would go to McDonald's like 3 times a day. And so I don't cook. I don't like to cook. And I know that's maybe a surprise because of our lifestyle really requires a little bit more in that area, but I don't like to cook. And so I always ate out. That was it. And you're right. It was 371 pounds was my highest weight when I got my wake-up call in January of 2008.
And so what happened in 2008 as a result of carrying all that weight around? What was the first thing you heard that you didn't like to hear?
Well, honestly, I was kind of healthy. I thought I was healthy, except for the weight. I didn't have any health issues at all. I had never been in the hospital. And in 2007, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I didn't really consider that as being bad. I don't know why, but In January 2008, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol. And I just stopped me in my tracks. And I just said, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. And so I followed the diet that the doctor put me on. And he said, go see a nutritionist, dietitian. And of course, they were sending me to and sent me home with a diet that was low carb and high protein, because that's what they believed at the time. I don't know if that's still the protocol, but I started immediately and gave up all sweets immediately, and did what the doctor told me to do. I was on metformin and simvastatin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And I had psoriasis all over my legs and arms. So I was on like a prescription psoriasis medicine. And then later on, as I started losing weight on that diet, but I wasn't happy with, I was feeling restricted. It was just like a diet, like all diets. And I'd been dieting my whole life. So it took a while. I started that diet in 2008 when the doctor told me in my diabetes. And every 6 months, I would go back to the doctor for a checkup, and he'd say, you're doing great. Keep taking the medicine. You're doing great. Keep taking the medicine. And I said, well, I don't want to take the medicine. That's the whole point. And he said, oh, you're always going to be diabetic. You'll always be on the medicine. So that frustrated me. And so I just totally went off of it. And then I started gaining back, went back to a standard American diet. And I had lost like 100 pounds probably by the time. And then my mother was, had been suffering from memory issues, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I started thinking, you know, my dad's sister had Alzheimer's, my dad's dad had Alzheimer's, my mom's mom had Alzheimer's, and now my mom had been diagnosed. And so at this time, I was still probably about 90 pounds down. I had gained some back, and I literally sat down at my computer and typed into Google, how do I prevent Alzheimer's? And Dr. Neil Barnard's book popped up about the brain health one. And so I started then researching, and for like 6 months, I started researching and determined that that was my best, you know, choice to try to prevent Alzheimer's.
So it was the Alzheimer's that you were focused on, not like this weight that I just lost 100 pounds and now I'm getting it back again.
And I still had diabetes, and I still had diabetes. Yeah.
So your focus wasn't on the weight at this point. So when you stumbled upon the work of Dr. Neil Barnard, then what did you take any kind of action based on what you had learned?
Well, his was the first book that I found, and then I found Dr. Furman, and then I found Dr. McDougall, and I just kept studying, and I was reading scientific studies and medical studies and watching documentaries, and I just kept reading books. And finally, I just got to the point, it had been about 6 months, and I got to the point where I watched Forks Over Knives. And that was the Sunday before Christmas of 2012. And the next day I got rid of all the food in my house, and I went out and bought all new food. And that was my Christmas present to myself in 2012.
So what was it about Forks Over Knives that resonated so strongly? Because you had tried a lot of diets and you had tried a lot of things, but you watch a documentary and you immediately cleaned out your cupboards, right? So what was it that you saw in that film that made you say, I have to do this and I have to do it now?
Well, Alzheimer's has been the driving force since I started researching the plant-based. But Forks Over Knives just talked about overall health and all the other health conditions. And I thought, well, maybe this is my answer on the diabetes, and maybe this is the answer on the high cholesterol. And even the sleep apnea. I mean, I had all that stuff. I had been put on medicine for anxiety at this point in time as well. So I had all those health conditions. I had a lot of weight I still wanted to lose, but my primary driving force every single day is still the Alzheimer's, because my mom passed away with it. And it's a heartbreaking disease.
Yes, it is. And do you feel like you're in a better position now than you've ever been?
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like I'm in a better position now for any health condition whatsoever. I mean, when I very first started plant-based after Forks Over Knives, and I bought all new food, I simply went plant-based. So it wasn't quite as healthy as it could have been. And I actually gained a tiny bit of weight because I was eating a lot of nuts and a lot of processed things. But then but like within 3 or 4 months, I was off my diabetes medicine. I was off my cholesterol medicine. I was off all my medicine, and my sleep apnea went away in about 6 months, probably. So then in about a year from, it was December of 2013, that I had started reading more about tightening it up. And so that's when I flipped on December 2nd, 2013, is when I flipped to whole food plant-based. No oil, no sugar, no food additives, and nothing that my body treats like sugar. So I don't eat dried fruit or maple syrup or anything like that. So it's pretty clean.
You know, what's interesting is you said that you had lost 100 pounds, right, on this other diet, and you were still type 2. Did you have to lose 100 pounds on a whole food plant-based diet before you started to shed the type 2 and whatever came with that, like the meds? Or did you find that you didn't have to lose 100 pounds to get to that point with the whole food plant-based diet, that there was something else going on inside?
Right. And well, I don't really know how it would have been had I not lost 100 pounds, but I do know that when I had lost 100 pounds, I still had the type 2. So until I took the animal products out of my diet, I had type 2 diabetes. And, we know more about it now than we did 10, 11 years ago or whatever it was. Or at least it's a little bit more mainstream, perhaps, about the fats and the insulin resistance and that type of thing. And we have Mastering Diabetes, and we have Neil Bernhardt's book, on diabetes. And we have a lot of resources now, a lot more resources now.
And what's frustrating is what you were talking about, whether your doctor, you go see him after so many months and they say,
Yeah.
you know what, you're doing fine. I hear this a lot with a lot of different people. And I went to the doctor says I'm doing good. Well, what does that mean? It basically means you're taking your pill like a good little worker bee. You're staying within a range that we have deemed to be normal and acceptable, but you still have your disease and whatever that's doing.
Yeah.
You're taking something that's toxic that your liver has got to deal with. I mean, really, what's so fine about that? But yet that's the acceptable point that people have reached with their own doctor. Doctor doesn't really take a look at the holistic, right? The entire body. And that's what you learned when you watched Forks Over Knives, is that there's a whole body thing going on here.
Absolutely. It all interconnects. Exactly. And I think another thing that you are also aware of is that the medical schools do focus on medicine and treating the symptoms more. And I think that people have gotten used to that. I mean, people think most of the time, anybody I talk to, oh, that's too hard, I could never do that, I'll just take a pill. But they have been programmed to think taking the pill is actually not, they don't have high blood pressure anymore because they take a pill.
Right.
Or they don't have, and that is so wrong. And it just worries me so much that people are, I mean, there's just so much miscommunication and so much bad information.
Yeah, definitely. And when you find this way of eating and taking care of yourself, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I kind of feel like I'm glad that I understand this and I figured it out and I can help myself. And I'm sure that you feel the same way, but yet you take a look around you now and now you see things more for how they really are. And it can break your heart watching people just treading water like they're on a hamster wheel with their meds, not getting any better. It's a frustrating thing,
Absolutely.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about getting away from some of these foods that you had a relationship with growing up. How was it getting off of these foods? Because I would imagine you, like you said, you were eating a lot of fast food. There was a lot of processed foods. I'm sure there was a lot of cheese in the mix and stuff like that. And A lot of the animal foods are like a vehicle for butter, oil, cheese, and all that stuff. How was it breaking away from those foods? How would you describe that process?
Well, when I would go on a diet, um, with Dr. Adkins, I mean, remember him, and I ate a lot of meat and a lot of cheese and a lot of eggs. So this was, obviously just a total like switch, totally opposite. But I'm a very black and white personality. I'm an accountant by trade. So, so when I realized the benefits of this, and I learned what is actually in the cheese and what actually, how the animals, are treated and all that. It was this the whole big picture, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just said, I don't want any part of that. And I mean, literally, I snapped my fingers and changed overnight. And I have never, the only thing that I have struggled with a little bit is oil, because I didn't want to make a fuss when I went out to dinner with friends. But then I realized I'll just make a fuss. So other than that, but you're exactly right. That's how I grew up. I grew up with all of that processed stuff, all those, I loved Hostess cupcakes. And the McDonald's, yeah, like burritos and all the Egg McMuffins, all that stuff. And I don't know how. I just decided one day not to eat that anymore. I don't know how. I think that the evidence was just so overpowering, and I just drank it all in. It was just like a kid in a candy store with all the evidence, all the books that I read, all the medical studies I read, and watched all those documentaries. And it just all clicked. It just clicked. And I was just like,
Yeah, one of the things that I try to tell people is if you want to try to stop a habit, make it unattractive. Try to make it into a disgusting thing, because how many times do you do something that's disgusting and not very attractive? That's the opposite of how we are, right?
right.
And so you're telling me how you looked into how cheese is made, and it's a disgusting process that people don't even realize. And when it comes to meat, forget about it. People are so disconnected from
Yeah.
where their meat comes from. They think I'm a carnivore, I'm an omnivore, I'm supposed to eat meat. Yeah, but really you're not, because you don't go through all the dirty work that it takes that a real carnivore or omnivore has to go through to get that food, because that's their nature, right?
Right.
And so people are so disconnected from this. So you're saying that looking into those processes for what they really are, you don't even have to go down a propaganda road. You can just look at it for what it is, and you can see that it's maybe not something you want to be putting into your body, because the cost of it on a regular basis, which is what you were doing. I mean, look at the point that you got to, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that before we move on, as to when you were at that, your highest weight. I remember seeing in one of your stories about the damage that you did to your car once, right? And then you went on the airline. And so what happened when you went on the airline?
I was standing at the boarding gate and handed her my boarding pass, and she literally looked me up and down like this. And she said, "You're going to have to buy another ticket." She said, "You can't fit in one seat." And I got goosebumps telling you that story, because that was really hard to hear. And I remember I traveled a lot for my job. And so I would be sitting in the airline seat like this, because you're trying not to encroach on other people, because it's rude, but now I tell you, if I have to fly and somebody's large sitting next to me, let them spread out. I'm just okay, because I understand how it feels. And you don't want to make people feel less than, or because, and like you said, yes, my car, the seat bracing underneath my car like went through the bottom of the car, and because I was so heavy, the seat broke. And I still am surprised when I can fit through little spaces, because you can't. When you're that large, you are always knocking over things, and and you could never sit in a booth at the restaurant. You always had to get a table. There were so many things that were just totally humiliating, but I just never really, I just didn't think about it because that's just how it was. And I don't know. I don't know. It's very sad because there's a lot of people that are just that large or larger nowadays, even based on the fact that the diets have gotten worse since in the last 11 years since I've been doing this.
Mhm. And you had said that even though you were that heavy, you felt like you were healthy, I guess, because there
Yes,
was no major issue staring you in the face. It wasn't until you got the type
right.
2 and everything that maybe reality started to slip in
Yes,
there.
yes.
I wanted to talk about the process of losing all of that weight. Like, it doesn't happen quickly. It takes a while. You've got to stick with it, and a lot of times we read about people having lost 100 pounds, 200 pounds, and we're happy. And it's like, it's great, but we don't hear about the battles that they have to fight along the way, because it's not like, okay, you lost what, 230 some pounds.
36, 236.
You didn't lose 10 pounds a week for X amount of weeks, and it just went beautifully until it was all off, right there. Tell me about, was there ever a time when you stalled and the weight stopped and you wondered what's going on here? And then you have to make a tweak or you have to make a change. Like, did you ever face that?
I did. And I might not be typical on this, Anthony, because I just always focused on my health. I'm just like, I'm eating the right things. My blood is flowing better. My oxygen's flowing better. Everything, all my organs are working better. So I said, it's not about the weight, it's about the health. And so I really focused on the health, and I just knew that my body would get to its natural weight because I was eating what humans are designed to eat. And so I really never fretted too much about the weight. I was more, and still am, concerned mainly about the health benefits of it, which of course, bottom line for me still is the Alzheimer's thing. But and that's probably not typical because I've never gone off plan. I've never, this is my health and I want to be here on this planet for a long time. So there is no other option for me. I don't give myself any other option.
So you're saying that once you saw Forks Over Knives and you started to really clean things up, that you've been on this course. It's been what, 10 or so years now? I know, because that's about
Yes.
what I'm dealing with. Is
It
I'm
was
coming up on
Christmas
10.
of 2012. Yeah, I think we started similar time.
So you're saying that for the past 10 or so years, you've really been, well, you said earlier that you're black and white. And so, because I know that not everybody is, believe me, I know I work with people that are not so black and white, and they have struggles,
Sure.
stops and starts. The food cravings are in there. So you've been very strict with yourself over the last number of years, right?
I have. I do. If I have like a really stressful time, and especially during COVID, I would overeat, but I never ate off plan. And I would eat like oatmeal and blueberries is one of my favorite things. So instead of having one bowl for breakfast, I would have 2 bowls for breakfast, something like that. Oh man, that was so good. I think I'll have some more. So mine's overeating, but it's not overeating anything bad. It's always the same. It's always the same food. It's just, yeah, I'm just overeating. If I have any struggle at all, that's it.
So why, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for you
Okay.
here. Why not just, like, let's say your friends invite you out for dinner and it's someone's birthday or something. Come on, Carla, it's just one. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to make you gain weight. It's just one thing. And then tomorrow you go back on your diet again. What's the problem? Why can't you do just one night out or one go off plan? What's the big deal?
Because I think that my body knows. I think my body knows if I eat something that's not good for it. And I just won't allow myself to do it. I think I don't want to get to the point where I feel like I'm restricting myself. And with this diet, with this lifestyle, there's no restrictions to me. It's like, look at the plethora of vegetables and fruits and stuff we have. So I'm not typical. I'm not typical. And I do have friends that say, let's go out to eat. And now I have friends that say, where can you find, something compliant to eat, and we'll go there. But at the beginning, people would be angry with me because I wouldn't eat off plan. And they would say, I would say, oh, I'll come with you guys and I'll just drink tea. That's fine. I'd love to visit. And they're like, no, we're not going to go if you're not going to eat. And I've lost friends over it.
Really?
But a lot of people, have that connection with friends over food. Food is so social. And so I've found my group of friends that we go out where I can get something compliant, or I go have tea with people, because I'm not going to go off plan. I know I'm not typical.
No, it's like you're at the point that I want people to get to.
Yeah.
Because that's the point that you have to be. Like, if you weren't in a consistent way, what would that mean for your health now? Would you
Right.
feel as confident about the Alzheimer's if you weren't eating if you were maybe doing it 80%, would you still
Right.
feel the way you are? Would your weight be, would you be as happy with your weight if you were only doing it 80%?
Right. Right. It's kind of like that Dr. Greger quote, which, we are hitting ourselves with a hammer. And if we eat like 80%, we're just using a smaller hammer. Because I don't know, that I'm just really, really, really very, very serious about my health. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
So let's say, so first of all, do you go out to eat?
I do.
You do? Okay. So let's say somebody invites you out to eat. What is your plan for going out? Because you're not going to go out. I get the feeling that you've got things pretty much mapped out in some way, but what can you tell us? What is it that you plan for when you go out? Do you look ahead at the menu? Do you bring anything with you? How do you plan for that?
If it's a restaurant that I'm not familiar with and know that there's already something compliant on the menu, one of two things. I will call ahead and ask them, or look online at the menu, and sometimes they don't give enough details that they can or can't prepare this with oil or not oil or whatever. So I will go to the restaurant and I will explain to the server. And if she says, oh yeah, we can make that without this, or we can make that without that, that's great. When I've called ahead, sometimes I would even talk to the chef and they'll prepare me like a beautiful plate of vegetables. And all the people at my table are buying like $30, $40, $50 entrees, and my vegetables were still $30, but I got to eat with my family, So the other option too is to eat before you go, and just drink water or tea, or I don't drink alcohol, but just be there for the social aspect and with the friends. And if people are okay with that, then I'm okay with that. And if I get there and there's absolutely nothing to eat, I'm not going to eat.
So what happens if you're invited to someone else's house? How do you deal with
Exactly the
that?
same thing. If there's not anything to eat, I will not eat. But that's me. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I would feel bad doing that. I would feel bad not, that host has prepared all that food for all the people and for the party. And I would just say, oh, I'm not hungry or something. I just wouldn't eat.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got it down and you stand up for yourself, and
I
that's what
do.
I try to teach people to do, because a lot of times the people that come to me that I work with, they're in a position where they're still craving things that they used to have. Cheese is still in the mix. This is where I try to show people how cheese is made. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't know. Try anything, right?
Right.
And I find that it's so difficult when you've got one foot in the standard American diet door and you're trying to enjoy this lifestyle, that it's very tough. It's very, very tough.
It is. It absolutely is. There's no doubt about it. I am, like I said, I'm not a typical person that would like this, that you're trying to help. And I have helped some people as well. One little thing that I say is, they're like, oh, well, my husband eats this and, that, and my kids eat it, and I can't eat this way. It's too hard because everybody else has got all that in the house. So I just always, and you may appreciate this, is say, well, your cat has their food and your dog has their food. So just see all their food and say, that's just not your food. That is not your food. So it's a mindset. It's absolutely a mindset. There's no doubt about it. And you have to watch out for yourself because nobody else is going to.
That's very true. And I guess people need to really know why they're doing this. That's the other thing about it. Because if you're doing it because it's part of a list that you're trying to stick to, or you're trying to avoid things because of willpower and all that, that stuff to me is just going to go away. It's not, you can't rely, you have, you think about a lot of things in life that you just will not do. And there's a reason why you won't do it. And it usually is because it goes against your own character, right? And so you feel inside you that this is who I am. This is how I eat. And I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. And anybody that's got a real problem with it, like, I hate to hear that you lost friends over it. You have to wonder what kind of a friend really cares that much about what you're eating. Like, is it that big a deal, really?
Exactly.
And so people have to find their own why. And your why is you want to avoid Alzheimer's. And plus, what it was like to not be in the healthiest shape. I mean, if you were still 371 pounds, not only would you be ripe for Alzheimer's, but who knows where your health would actually be now. It's like you saved your own life because you stood up for yourself.
Yes, I did. But I'm the only one that can do it.
Right. Nobody else can force that on you,
I know. And it makes me sad to see my friends eating the way that they do. And they know I have a family member, and I don't know that he would want me to say, so I won't say, but I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, and just like 6 months ago, he went to the doctor and he got some things back on the report, the labs that he wasn't happy with. And he messaged me, he said, can you send me some recipes? And I'm like, yes, I can. So I just hate it that people are so sick and they don't have to be.
Yeah. But you know what? You were a good example, and your family member knew to reach out to you, and they wouldn't have done that if you hadn't have done what you have done and stuck to it and been that good example.
Yeah. I have a band that I wear on my arm that says lead by example. It's my reminder. And I walk the walk every day. And sometimes people get tired of hearing about it. I don't share it as much as I used to. I used to try to change the world, just like when I quit smoking, I was trying to get everybody to quit smoking. But I don't talk about it as much as I used to, because I'm just trying to lead by example.
Now, when you quit smoking, did you just stop?
Yep.
Because I could see you doing that. Like, that's like, I didn't see you cutting back to like one a day or something.
Now, right? I tried to quit for like 2 years and I couldn't. And then all of a sudden I went into the store that one morning to pick up a pack of cigarettes, and they had gone up to like $6 a pack. And I said, no, not going to do it anymore. And I mean it. I can remember the date and the time that I had my last cigarette, but no more after that. I had just made the decision. So I think it's, like I said, it's just a mindset of, you have to be in charge of you. You have to be in charge of you. Nobody else can do it.
Yeah. And the thing with the cigarettes, though, it's similar to the food. Because I tell people who are struggling with the food, I can't stop eating this. I can't stop. I tell them, you know what you really have to do is stop. That's what you have to do. I mean, look, the alcoholics and the drug addicts, they put them in a place where they don't have any access to it. They dry them out, right? And you stopped smoking, you just stopped. And then what happens is that your body gets used to it not being there the way that it was used to it being there, and you like wanting it every day. When you stop, your body, it's like, all right, we can do. I'm not saying it's going to be easy right at the beginning. Right. And maybe you can attest to when you first stopped, if it really messed with your head. But I mean, eventually you get over it and your body gets used to it. And I tell people, your body will adapt to whatever you do. So when are you
Yes.
going to make a good change that your body can catch up to? You've done enough of the bad habits that your
Yes.
body's gotten used to. Let's start
Yes.
some good habits so your body can make those adaptions.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk about too is that you got off of fast food and addictive food. And although you can sit here and say, well, I'm very black and white and I just stopped, that's a really big thing, because there's a lot of people that just, they seem to think that they can't stop eating these foods. What do you say to people who say, I can't stop? I can't help myself. What do you say to that kind of attitude?
Oh, um, they just have to make a choice and choose themselves. They're worthy of good health. They're worthy of good health. And when they don't eat well, and they know as they're eating it, they're not eating well, there's something else going on inside of them, that they've got to reconcile and figure out exactly what is the most important thing in your life. Health has absolutely the most important thing in your life, because you won't be here to do anything else, in my opinion.
What I want to talk about now is, what would you say is your day-to-day in terms of meals? Like, what do you plan for? Like, how much planning do you do when it comes to meals, and what are you eating, let's say, on a day-to-day basis?
Well, as I said earlier, I don't like to cook. And so I prepare very, very simple dishes. And I do work a lot still. So I do try to plan a little bit ahead what I'm going to work, what I'm going to eat. But I eat simple things like oats and fruit. I eat roasted vegetables on like a silicone mat in the oven. I eat a lot of sweet potatoes and, of course, greens. I'll throw a bunch of onions and mushrooms and peppers and stuff just in a skillet, and maybe, brown it, like dry brown it a little bit, and then throw in some veggie broth or some tamari or something, and then throw in other vegetables, and put that over like a brown rice. And I usually cook brown rice on Sundays, so I have that for the whole week. And I usually make my plant-based yogurt. I make that in the Instant Pot. And I usually have that because I enjoy that on fruit and on my oatmeal. And I also like it on Mexican. I eat a lot of like a burrito bowl, like a rice and a beans, and throw a whole bunch of vegetables and on there. So that, that's it. It's just really simple things. So when I go to the grocery store, I go, all the only thing I don't get on the produce aisle. Let's think about that. If I don't get it on the produce aisle, I buy salsa and I buy canned beans, and most everything's in the produce department.
Right.
Yeah.
The Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've met quite a few people that, and I'm going to be one of them, that cooking is just not like the number one thing that you do and you prefer to do. How did you get over that initially? Like, okay, I'm going to have to eat a lot of plants. You could eat a lot of raw stuff and be great,
Sure.
but you have to cook really to some extent. Especially to unlock the calories from potatoes and rice and those types of things that can fill you up. I'm sure that those were your friends when you were starting. How did you approach cooking when you didn't like it?
Well, I have an Instant Pot, and I was scared of it. I didn't even take it out of the box for like 4 months because I was scared it's going to blow up. But once I learned my Instant Pot, I use my Instant Pot every single day, somehow or another. I do. And so I've tried to find some recipes that are in the Instant Pot, like a stew, or I'll make a big soup or something, and then eat on that through the week. So Instant Pot recipes are good for me because it's just putting the stuff in the pot, or even crock pot things work okay. I don't do a lot of them, but yeah, when I very first went plant-based, I was eating more processed stuff. That was when I was in the vegan stage that first year. Then when I found Whole Foods, then I bought like every cooking utensil there was, and all these spices, and I was going to be, I was going to do all this, and I did. I didn't love it, but I did fine for probably a year. And then I thought, okay, Carla, you are making this way too hard. You don't need all this. You know, you can get just as many vitamins and minerals and everything out of these simple foods. So that's kind of when I changed my whole outlook about don't make it so hard. And occasionally I will be in a mood to say, oh, I'm going to make blueberry muffins, or I'm going to make, you know, this casserole or whatever, but it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is. If you were to take a look at the recipes that are out there and a lot of things there, you could get lost down a rabbit hole of some very
Absolutely.
complicated things where you got to go buy all these ingredients. It'll take you half a day to cook it, and then you
Yeah.
like 15 minutes to eat it all, you know, and that's not, I never liked that feeling. That's probably one of the reasons why I hated cooking, is because it took so long to make and I just finished it. Like, I'm not doing that again, right? But it seems like you took a look at it and said, you know what, I'm going to keep it simple, because like you said, we don't really need we don't need a lot. We
Right.
need to keep it simple and to keep it easy, because if it's too complex, you're going to stop doing it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to say, oh, I just can't. And you're going to go back to eating the way you were.
Yeah, exactly. And so I put something in the Instant Pot in the mornings before I leave, so that when I come home for lunch, I have my lunch ready. So you just have to plan a little bit ahead that way. And I eat like some canned vegetables. I hear a lot of people say, oh, you don't want to eat canned vegetables, but they're just like what's in the can, like perfectly plain sliced beets in a can. I slice them up and put them on my salad. So I try to make it as simple as I can. And of course, fresh is better, but beets in the Instant Pot are really good, but it's a lot more work than opening up a can. So
And just so we're all clear here, from the time that you went on Forks Over Knives, let's say, and you changed everything and you started to go whole food, plant-based, how long did it take for you to get down to the weight, let's say, that you are now, to go from that 370 range down to what you deem acceptable? How many years did that take?
well, okay, so I started in January of 2008, and I started doing what the doctor told me to do, and I got down like 123 pounds, and then I went off of it and I gained back about 30 of it or so. So then I was probably 90 pounds down when I found the vegan, and then I was eating so many nuts and chips and salsa. I would eat a whole bag of Doritos. They were vegan, you know. And then, so the next thing I knew, I'd gained another 15. So by the time I hit whole food plant-based, that was December of 13, and probably early 2017 is when I hit the 135. And I kept telling myself, as I was losing, even though the weight was not my focus, I kept thinking, I think I want to get down to 155, because that's how much I weighed as a senior in high school, right? I had dieted to get to 155 in high schoal, but my body, I said, my body's going to get where it needs to go. And I just keep eating this way, and I don't focus on my weight. It's all here I'm all doing it all for health.
It took you a number of
14,
years.
15, 16. Yeah, about 3.5 years, I guess, from the time I found whole food.
But you did it slowly, which is really the best way to do it, because a lot of times people get on diets and they lose weight really quickly. Like, did you have any issues with excess skin?
I do have excess skin, but I think also because I did it more slowly, it's not quite as noticeable. I just cover up with clothes. I don't think I'll ever wear a normal swimsuit again, but I call it my battle scars. People ask me about it all the time. Don't you have excess skin? Yes. And I call it battle scars, because I tell you what, I battled my weight for a long time, and I battled my health for a while. So that's how I look at it. I look at it that there's this baggy skin or loose skin is not full of fat.
Right. Right. And I think you had also mentioned that in terms of the type 2 and the sleep apnea, that within about 6 to 8 months or so, those were gone, right? After you had gotten started?
The diabetes was gone in like 3 months, and the sleep apnea probably in 6. And the doctor didn't take me off the sleep apnea machine. I was still using it. And after about 6 months, I would wake up in the middle of the night and my lungs felt like they were going to explode because, I was forcing air that I didn't need anymore. So I just said, oh, I'm not going to try this for a few days and see how it works. And I was fine. So I just stopped using it.
When it came to the meds, how did you come off those? Did you come off them yourself and wean, or did you work with your doctor? And how did that work?
I would recommend working with the doctor. I cut back because my blood sugars were getting too low. When I was doing my testing, I had to prick my finger. My blood sugars were getting too low even after I ate. So I thought, okay, I'm going to cut back, because I was having like one pill in the morning and one at night, I think. So I cut back half. And then when I was consistently having good blood sugars, I just stopped taking it. But I would recommend you working with your doctor maybe more. I didn't have health insurance at the time. So there was a little, thing there by the time I didn't have health insurance. So.
Mhm. What types of issues did you notice cleared up that are outside of weight? So let's say in the type 2 and the sleep apnea, surely there were other things that you saw.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
psoriasis went away. I had it on my legs and on my elbows and my arms in here. Wow. For probably 20 years, I had that on my legs and my arms, and it cleared up pretty soon. And I didn't even realize it was clearing up. It was just like one day I'm like, oh my gosh, that's gone, that kind of thing. And I know there's 2 or 3 other things. I wish I would have written them down. And that is my recommendation to anyone who embarks on this. I have a few recommendations, but one of them is write everything down, because you're going to want to know. People are going to ask you, how long did it take for you to get off of that medicine? And when did you stop buying that antacid or whatever? But I didn't think about it really. I just was so happy that it was all happening and it was all evolving the way that I felt like my body was just feeling so much better. And it's just so many little things. Your fingernails are stronger and my hair is curlier and thicker, and my eyesight improved, and even my eye doctor still argues with me about taking fish oil. He still argues with me about it. And I said, no, sorry. And when I called him about something, I needed something fixed on my glasses. I said, I'm the one that you're always arguing with about the fish oil. I said, and remember my prescription got better? Yes, I know, he says.
Now, eyesight is something that people typically don't think about getting better. Usually we think about that just gets worse and worse and worse, because usually our prescriptions our glasses get thicker and thicker and that kind of thing. So how pronounced a change was it for you with your eyesight?
Well, they just had to back off on my prescription. They just had to make that next set of glasses not quite so strong, because I hadn't been to the eye doctor in maybe like 2 years. And I was getting to where I was having trouble seeing. And I thought, oh, I guess I need to go to the doctor. It's time for new glasses, And when I got there and he did all my testing, he said, the reason you can't see is because your glasses are too strong. And I'm like, okay, I can go for that. So yeah, it's little things like that you don't really think about. There's so many little things. And I wish I had a list of them. I will start writing them down now. So I have this, the next time somebody asks me, and I have a friend who said, I could never do that because I don't like tomatoes and I don't like onion and blah, 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 and I said, eat the vegetables that you like right now until your taste buds change. People don't realize that their taste buds do change or can change really pretty easily. So it's just getting that heavy, fatty, sugary stuff out of your diet and off of your tongue. And the flavors burst with just brilliant, as you know.
All they need to do is just do what you do and stop eating those foods, and then your taste buds will kick in and they'll change.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I always say it's magic. It is really like magic. I would never in a million years have ever known that I could live so beautifully in tune with my body and with the earth, and and it's just, yeah, it's just magic.
And I was going to ask you while we wrap up is what this has meant for you beyond the weight loss, right? And beyond getting your health, like what opportunities has this opened up for you? What things are you doing now that you couldn't have done before when you were at 300 and some pounds?
Well, I teach yoga, and I did start yoga about a year before I found plant-based eating. And I had someone do some private sessions with me because at 300 and some pounds, I didn't feel comfortable going to a class. I just, I didn't really think I could do yoga, and I'd always been interested in it. So I have really improved my yoga practice, and I went through the teacher training, and I teach yoga. Um, a lot of people don't realize how good food affects your mental, everything mental. Like I always say, good food, good mood, because I'm happy all the time. I mean, it's just, I don't get angry. A lot of it is my spiritual practice as well. I do meditation and mindfulness practices, but and I do a lot of workshops, and I try, and I had a dream about that I am a positivity place, and I opened up a little shop called Positivity Place. I had to close it during COVID, but so it's just a whole package. It's like the positivity, the plant-based eating, the spiritual side with the meditation and the yoga, and it's just like the whole, everything was just so life-changing, and it all kind of came together exactly like you said. Because when you're eating better, you're feeling better, you have more energy. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I have more energy than I've had in like 40 years. Hard to say, but like probably from my early 20s, that I haven't had, I've got more energy than, and all my friends, like, they're just like, oh my gosh, how did you do, how do you do that? They're just like all in awe of it. And they're like, I could never do that. I could never do that.
Wow. So it seems to really have unlocked things for you that were not even possible before. And you feel
Absolutely.
better now probably than you
Absolutely.
have in a long, because I know I feel better in my 50s than I did when I was in my 40s. I kind of
Yeah.
wish I had done this earlier. That's what a lot of people say. I'm sure you probably feel the same, right? You
Yeah.
wish you had maybe done this sooner.
Absolutely. But it wasn't even in my realm of thinking. I didn't even know. I mean, I thought about those crazy vegetarians and the hippies, way back in the 60s and the 70s, but I wouldn't even have dreamed of doing it, or even that. Never had a reason why to or not to. Just hadn't ever thought about it.
Did exercise play much of a role in your weight loss over the years when you were trying to lose weight? Like, what did you do to stay active?
That's one thing I would have changed. If I had it to do over again, I would do more exercise. I joined Curves, which was like a little women's gym. And so they have like a circuit. So I did Curves for several years. But that was a 30-minute thing every day. And I really didn't do too much other than that and yoga. And then I started walking. So I would say Curves and walking and yoga. Yoga is very good, even strength training and resistance against our own body weight. But I wish I would have done more, I don't want to say heavy duty workouts, but more intensity type things. And a lot of people also that eat this way start running. You've noticed that. And I've never run in my whole life. And I decided after I lost all the weight that I was going to run a 5K. And I said, I don't want to walk a 5K. I want to run a 5K. So I started training for that, and I've done it twice. I've not run the whole thing yet, but it's still on my list. So I don't know what makes us think that we want to run, after we get so healthy, but I think because we have so much more energy. I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also goes to show you that if you want to be a runner, you have to change your habits to that of a runner. You just don't say, you know what, I'm going to run the marathon. That's in another week. I'm just going to show up. Like you got to build up to it.
Yes.
And it's similar to what you have to do with this way of eating. is that if you want to lose 200 and some pounds like yourself, if you want to lose 50 pounds like what I lost, you have to have a plan and you got to stick with it. And you got to change habits, because if you think you're going to achieve that doing the same thing that you're always doing, it's not going to work. And that's part of what this is about too, is coming up with better habits. And you certainly have employed those throughout your time, right?
Exactly like you said, it's just making that decision to make them habits. Just like I brush my teeth every day, just like you take a shower every day, whatever it is, that's how you eat. You know, that's what you eat. That's what you do. You know, just like any other habit that we have.
Yeah.
You just have to make it part of your life and your mindset. And you can do it. I'm telling whoever's out there listening, you can do it. You really can. You just have to want it.
Yeah.
And you're worthy of it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to wrap up with, was somebody watching this who may be 300 pounds or maybe not even that much. They may know inside they have to make a change. Something has got to give. They can't keep living like this. They're concerned about their partner, their family. They want to be there for their grandkids. What do you say to those people who may be watching this, who need a little bit of a pep talk, or they need a little bit, something to kind of push them, or something, give them something to think about, that they could say, you know what, I really need to do this? Like, what advice would you give someone in that kind of a position?
I would have to say, even though it's not the way that I did it, if you could do it the way I did it, that would be great, like just by flipping a switch. But you have to start. Just take one step and start. And then just take another step the next day, and take another step the next day. And as your momentum builds, start writing all this down. Start writing down, okay, wow, I had a little bit more energy. I got up easier today. I didn't have to take but 10, pills instead of 20, or whatever, it is that you have in your little medicine box. Which a lot of times people have like Advil or whatever. I know when I overdid it at yoga one time, I came home and I couldn't find any Advil or ibuprofen or anything, except for I found one bottle and it had expired like 3 years before that, because I haven't bought any of that since I've been eating this way. So that's it. Baby steps, just take baby steps, and maybe write down different things of how this is, how are you feeling? Did you go to the bathroom better today? Have you got fewer headaches? Little bitty things that people don't think about, especially when you're drinking more water and you're eating better, your body's going to operate better. Everything's going to work better. Yeah.
And I think that you took a lot of the guesswork out by being black and white, by flipping a switch. It was probably easier for you to stick to 100% than figuring
Absolutely.
out how you're going to straddle 50-50 or 60-40. There's so many questions that you could have, but you made it very clear, I'm sticking to this. And there's a lot to be said for when you stick to something, it's easier because you know the rules.
Yes.
Very black and white.
Yes. And I've read multiple articles about 100% and how much easier it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may stink right at the beginning when you have to make these adjustments and everything, but like anything, you power through it and your body will get used to it. And I think that you're a testament to that way of actually doing it. And I wish more people took your approach.
Just, message me. It's fine. I'm happy to share.
Before we wrap up, where can people find you?
Well, I do have a Facebook page. It's called Purely Plants, that is just about education to help people transition or just learn more about the lifestyle. And Anthony has a page called The Vital Blend, and I share a lot of his stuff on it because he's got such amazing testimonials. When you see that all the people that can do this and the health improvements that they have had, it should make you at least think that you could do it. Because you absolutely can. So, or you can email me. I think it's purelyplants@yahoo.com. But just know that this is becoming a little bit more and more mainstream because people are really learning how detrimental the animal products and the processed foods are for us. And you want to be around for your grandkids, and you want to be here for your partner, and you want to be here for you. You want to be able to go out and take that hike. You want to go out and swim. You want to go dancing. So yes, you can do it.
Well, thank you so much, Carla. It has been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope that people feel inspired by this talk. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Anthony. You're welcome.